Sounds like it worked.
So am I, I'm signed on as Sam.
Okay.
How does Sam sign on if I'm signed on as him?
I think he just got kicked out.
You want to know if we had more or some right away.
He probably just kicked you out by signing on.
Anyways, I think he's using the cheap stuff.
So now I need to do me.
Yeah. You should also just be able to join.
I went to the link and it signed me in, so.
Oh.
I don't know my
So you
password.
could try and get it. Try and get it
Are we
next day.
signed in twice, Cheryl?
Oh,
That
am
can
I
be
signed
okay.
in still?
Huh?
Am I signed in?
Hey,
You
sorry.
got me signed in twice. It's all right. That's okay.
Okay. I can live with that.
Very good. So where'd you take that picture at? That's a good picture you have there for your icon.
No, it looks like somewhere in central Utah. Is it from Montana?
What's that?
Or is it from Montana?
Nope.
Where's it from?
It is down in outside of Blanding.
Ah, hi Becky.
Hey.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
Bernie came in person, so he's running home to sign on.
Who is?
Bernie?
Oh, Bernie came.
Yeah,
You'd have him sign on there in the conference room if you wanted.
I was thinking of it, but he said he'd go home and have his wife do it.
I was gonna say, it's usually Bernie's wife that's running it. So how's life now down there by Monteval, Becky?
Good. Fine.
I never did get a phone call. What have you been applying for work?
I made a few applications and then I stopped. Kind of in flux, trying to decide what to do, so. Yeah. You're still on my list though.
Okay. I was just wondering, I hadn't heard anything, so I'm like, well, maybe she didn't apply or maybe she did, or you thinking of going back to school, or what are you thinking of doing?
I don't think I want to go back to school, but if I found something that I really, really wanted to do, I wouldn't mind going back to school, but I'm 59, so I don't have, I'm not 99. Still got a lot of life ahead of me. I'm in a midlife crisis, I guess.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I understand that. That's understandable.
Are you working from home tomorrow?
And
See you Thursday.
I gotta run some kids around. Kids get expensive. They're a lot cheaper when they're young. And then they turn into teenagers.
When the money comes.
It's gonna cost like $10,000 just to have it.
It's like people are slowly getting on.
How's it going at the city center?
Good.
Mm.
Good. Things are busy. We got a lot
That's
of
good.
projects. Yeah, we got a lot of projects going on. Both transportation, our ARC CIP projects. Yeah, we got a lot going on. Not much private development. It seems but we got a lot of ARC capital projects, a lot of planning. Right now it's kind of a busy time for us. We start looking to get our projects bid out, try and get them designed and get ready to bid out come January, February, in that time frame, just to kind of get better numbers. That way the contractors can kind of get their schedule, their backlog all kind of made up and ready to go. And if we can get in there earlier on in the queue, then we get a little bit better pricing. So
Yeah, I'm sure
So,
that's
yeah.
more important now than ever.
yeah, seems to be a little bit of a slowing in the market, a little bit on development. Yeah, but I think costs are still pretty high, labor's still pretty high. So, yeah. But no, it's good. I mean, the tank, it'll be good to have that tank project going. That's going to have a lot of.
I never even heard where they decided to put that.
It's in your front yard.
No, I would know. I would know by now.
Yes, you would. No, it's down on the corner of 4th South and 4th West, on that southwest corner.
Oh, I
Arlen-
didn't know if that was going to happen there.
Yeah, Arlen Farley, that was his orchard, and we purchased 4.2 acres of it. And then he still retains about 1.5 acres. And then at some point when he decides he's done with the orchard business, then he'll look to, at least we'll have the first right of offer. And if it's reasonable, then we would.
That seems
purchase
like a
it.
good compromise.
Yeah, yeah, I know he's still kind of has a little bit of remorse, but yeah. I know Bernie was heading home. He was going to head home and try and sign on, and it looks like Carl's there. Russ was the one who was saying he could attend via Zoom. So hopefully he jumps on. Kind of get going. I think we need a quorum.
I think we have a quorum.
Yeah, we do have a
Um,
quorum.
We've got, so Russ, you said is still in transit. And no, I'm sorry, Bernard, you said was in transit?
Yeah, he had stopped by
Okay.
and then he was going to go home and coordinate with his
So-
wife to hook up his Zoom.
We've got Russ, and I'm not sure which Jeff that is. I think it's Jeff Lamson, is that right?
It is, yes.
Okay, so Jeff Whitlock is still not with us.
Yeah, he
And,
actually resigned. He's moving to Provo. So,
Okay, so he's no longer on the commission.
correct.
So then, just Russ, Bernard, okay. And will Cheryl be joining us, Sam, or should we go ahead and get started?
Yeah, she's actually the other Sam Kelly that's on there. She's signed in with my
Okay.
account.
I just
So-
noticed that,
She's the better looking
Um,
one of the two.
yeah, definitely. I'm not gonna argue with you there, Sam.
Gosh, didn't even hold
So-
back. Didn't even say it was a tie. Man,
I
No,
like the white in your beard though, Sam. That's looking awesome.
yeah, it's great. Coming up for Christmas, right? I am a grandpa now, so
Oh,
that is
cool.
kind of weird to think that I'm
Well, in a few
49
years, you
and a
can do an
grandpa.
all white beard.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll try and talk me into it, and I'll probably do it.
okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with the meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Appreciate all of you attending. It feels like it's been forever since we've been together, and I looked at the minutes, and yeah, it's been 6 months. Obviously, there were some conflicts during the summer with various things, and then just some decisions to skip the meeting for a month at a time. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started on the meeting today. The first item is to review and approve the minutes from the May 4th meeting. You've all had those for a few days now that Cheryl sent out. Are there any comments or corrections that need to be made on those?
So I
minutes?
wanted to make one amendment if we could.
Okay.
Under the observations, the 2DII portion. I was the one that brought that up, and the issue with that is not the shoulder necessarily, it's the right-hand turn into Quick Quack. We're wondering if we can close that. It was originally there for an access point for Ace Hardware. They have an easement there, but since they put in the light about 100 feet down, there's actually a right-hand turn lane with the deceleration lane. Because what's currently happening is people are turning into Quick Quack in that first one, and they're just coming to an abrupt stop. So there's a lot of potential for rear ends, or I don't even know if they're happening, but I know I've had to stop quick several times. So with the new light that was put down farther, that was the question, is can we close that off now and use that other access, for have Ace Hardware use that other access? So just a little clarification on that.
Okay, so with the clarifications on the minutes, I'm not sure procedurally, would we still vote with the verbal corrections, or do we wait for another set of minutes to come out? Cheryl, I'll pass that to you.
So I have changed it to the right-hand turn into Quick Quack, and I'll put the address. I'll have to look up the address.
Okay,
And then, we don't put any details. You just go to the recording for the details. So,
So maybe
Okay.
right-hand turn at the light versus the right of way that's currently there. Does that state it? Can we state it that way?
right-hand turn at the light.
So yeah, move the right hand turn down to the light and close the quick crack, the access right there.
So right-hand turn at the light at 1600 North and close Quick Quack access.
Yeah, it's actually, at 400 West. The way to clarify, the light at 400 West. Use
Okay.
that right
Let me
hand
change
turn.
that.
Okay, thanks.
You can make a right turn into Quick Quack from 400 West. Oh, I see.
No,
You can
yeah.
go eastbound.
Yeah, eastbound.
Okay. So right-hand turn at the light at 400 West and close Quick Quack access. Okay, that change is made.
Thanks.
okay. Are there any other corrections for the minutes? Request to make any changes? It doesn't sound like that, and therefore I would propose a vote on the minutes. Those in favor of accepting as published with the one change that Lene just talked about, raise your hand or an eye. I've got one. Any others? 2, 3, 4.
Aye.
It's unanimous, Cheryl, for all of us attending, that we will accept the minutes as published. When you send me a copy with that change, I'll sign them and get them back to you.
Okay, and I just need a second. You made the motion. I need a second on that.
Okay, I made the motion and we can't vote until we get a second. So
I'll
let's do a
second.
second.
Okay, Becky, go ahead.
Looks like Becky seconded. And can the vote stand or do we need to vote again?
No, the vote can stand.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll work on my Robert's Rules of Order.
You're
at
doing
some-
great.
Moving along the agenda, we have project updates, followed the TMP updates. I assume I will turn the time over to Sam for those.
Yeah.
Okay, Sam, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marlon. Just as updates, looking at our projects, I kind of have these broke down into the different funding sources. We'll start with our MAG funded projects. I can probably, let me share the screen so that way you guys can see the map that I'm looking at. That way you can kind of, I can kind of help what we are looking at. We'll start with 4th West and 12th South. Been working with Horrocks. They've had a few issues with themselves with the firm. They've lost a few people, and those people happen to be the ones that were our project managers. So we're a little behind on this project, but we do have a design. We have met with UVU. They support the design of the hybrid roundabout. Horrocks is now working to get me the legal descriptions for the property that I will then engage the church to go ahead and purchase a portion of this property here. And they will also be getting me the legal description for the property with UVU, so we can kind of get that all buttoned up, get the right of way lined out, and then we will still be moving forward with the design. One of the biggest items that is one of the biggest things that we're going to have to work with on this is, I'll bring it down to street view, is going to be this power line and these poles. This pole more specifically here happens to be obviously a cross, an intersection. So we're working with Rocky Mountain Power to see what we can do to relocate that pole, probably move this pole to the north and then have another pole somewhere in here to kind of help with that span. So that could potentially be a big issue to work with, but we will be engaging with them to see what we can do to get that utility out of the way. We still are anticipating a bid date of this spring with construction next summer. If that changes though, I will coordinate with you guys, but that's kind of what we're looking at. With it being part of UVX and being next to UVU, it's pretty critical that we try and do this construction, June, July, and a portion of August. So if we can't hit those dates, then we may push it back to another year. So we're just kind of working forward with that project.
Sam, one comment on this project. I drive through that roundabout every time I leave my house. Is it possible to push the crosswalks further from the roundabout? I know that that's a pain for the pedestrians, but it's a safety issue when people come out of the roundabout and they stop. They wound up, the first car can barely stop there. The second car winds up stopping in the roundabout, and then it becomes a mess.
Yeah, so I mean, and I can dig up that. I should have probably done that. The crosswalks aren't going to be. They are going to be within the limits of construction. With the roundabout being larger, hopefully there's not going to be as much of an impact to cars traveling through there. But
Right.
yeah, it is a concern, and that's one of the biggest concerns, and it's a great segue into the next project that I have. We currently have a MAG project that is approved to put in a roundabout here at 16th North and 4th East. We had talked with Alta. They are an active transportation type planning group. Do a lot. They did our 2010 bike and pedestrian master plan. And at the time here, there were some folks in our maintenance that were not in our maintenance section with Public Works that weren't too excited about putting in a scramble type crosswalk here. We went through, we got funding and approval for a roundabout here. Personally, and I think as I discussed with other traffic and transportation engineers and other basic city engineers, roundabouts are great for moving traffic. They're not the best for active transportation, that being cycling and or peds. So what we're going to do is we have the money approved for this project. I can't remember how much it is. I think it's more than $1 million because that included right away. But we're going to actually engage another study with an engineering firm and to see if we can do something else. Taylor did go out there and he changed some of the signal timing, took that intersection out of coordination, which means it doesn't give, I mean, when you're in coordination, you're giving one of the primary movements more green time than another. This one, we set it up essentially to run free so that if any one of the legs were to go through and be detected, and or if a pedestrian was to go in there and hit a button, then it would start that cycle to go ahead, change out and give them priority. We've done that. We've probably had better compliance with most folks that typically are, your typical trail user going out for a leisurely stroll. We still aren't getting very good compliance with those that use it for a workout or who are maybe more actively commuting, as we like to call them, the spandex riders. So we're going to look to see if we can maybe put some detection on the canal itself, the trail, to maybe help with that signal so that we have better compliance. So it's a lot safer intersection for active transportation. It's unique. It's probably one of the only ones in the county. Most of the other areas, the corridors, intersections, they work to put in some sort of grade separated crossing like we have at 8th East where the trail goes below. But in here, the angle point with the pipeline, the large transmission power line on the north side made it really hard to put a straight shot in there. So that's why they chose to not do it here. So now we're stuck with trying to figure it out. So likely what we'll do is we'll look to hire an engineer to look into some other detection or things like that, put maybe a scramble type crosswalk here is what I would like to see happen. But we were going to take some of that money, study it a little bit more further, look around other parts of the country that have maybe this similar type of scenario and see if we can find a better solution. I just don't think a roundabout is a great solution when you have a lot of active transportation going on.
Yeah.
So there's that project that we have that's coming up. And then we also have Center Street at between not 8th North, between I-15 and Geneva Road, we have a project. It's been approved. It's been on the books and it's been on hold. We want to widen Center Street to 5 lanes in this section, but we were waiting on this spur line to be abandoned. If we were to move forward with putting that in, it would have cost anywhere from $500,000 to $750,000 to improve that crossing for that rail line that comes through maybe once a week. So we chose to wait, knowing that it's going to be abandoned. Well, finally now, in talking with Vineyard, they do have a plan. They are actively relocating this spur line, and it's going to be about 1.5 years. And Vineyard wants to have it gone mainly because of this access point here at 4th North. Not only at 4th North, but then it also changes their access here at Vineyard Connector and any other connection they want to have to Geneva Road. So that's the biggest reason why it's Vineyard that's pushing this forward. And Vineyard is using some of their dollars to relocate the alignment through here, so that, because they're really the only customer they have down this far south is BMC. Once this spur line gets relocated, this spur line will come up through here and it will service this part of Linden. There's a steel fab and shop there. There's, I think, Sunrock Truss plant and a few things, and they have a lot more heavy users of the rail up in this area of Geneva Road, and the only one here at the south happens to be BMC. Part of that project is they have to do some tracking along in here where they can actually have the engine go up, and I think it's they pull it up through there, then they can track off to the side, come back around, and then hook up to the car and then pull it down to the south. So unfortunately for us, they're not going to do that until they have all of this piece done in here. So we're waiting. But with that being said, in speaking with MAG yesterday, which is another piece here talking about the tip selection, with the extra dollars that we have left over, the MAG funding from 16th North, we may look to widen this section to more of a UDOT standard. Right now, the project was we were trying to work within the existing right-of-way, not by buildings and businesses. We could get the 5-lane facility fit in there. We just wouldn't have any shoulders. So now we will probably study it to see, okay, what would the cost be if we were to go to a UDOT standard? I think UDOT had a very rough estimate of about 12 million. But if that estimate is lower and we have the money left over from 16th North, that is MAG funding that we had allocated for that corridor, then we could possibly transfer it to here and build this to a better section, if that makes sense. So those are probably the main 3 city-funded MAG projects that we're going to be reevaluating here in this next year. UDOT, we have the mobility project, which is some of that's essentially medians along State Street. The one phase that they are looking to do is the phase here on Center Street. They advertised it, the prices came in really high, so they came back and they retooled it, rechanged the scope, modified some things within their schedule, allowing them work during the days and things like that. So now they're going to re-advertise that, I would imagine in December, to try and get better numbers. With the thought of looking to do the project this spring, summer. Again, if the bids come in higher than the estimate, UDOT may re-advertise and try and redo or try and look for additional funding, but that is what the plan is for the mobility project. And just as a reminder, they will be extending the median down here on the south leg. Really doesn't impact too much. Essentially, I think this access point, goes away, this left in. This side of Center Street will actually, this median will be extended through. They won't have a left in here to this, what was Ridley's. And then up here on First North, I think we're allowing a left in to First North, but we're not allowing a left out. So we're doing some access control in here to kind of help with things. And all of those treatments essentially are to create more stacking, more left turn stacking in these areas. The first north one, it's kind of a left turn stacking, plus it's kind of a safety issue. There really isn't anything there. These cars that come through here, they stack up wanting to turn left. It takes forever. And when they do, it's offset enough. There's people trying to turn left here into this, wherever, I think it's Mo Betta's now, or getting to Chick-fil-A. It's actually pretty safe. It's not a very safe intersection. So that's kind of what they want to do with that one. Similar to what we did here on Center Street will happen here, except we'll actually still have some stacking here for folks to turn left to go south on Warham Boulevard. So far, I think this intersection has worked out pretty well. We have pretty good compliance there. I think it helps with lane utilization. It's probably just a matter of time for if and when this redevelops, this gets extended and we possibly look at putting in a signal here. Another project that UDOT is looking to do is 8th North. It was initially a MAG funded project. The city had funding in here. UDOT is looking to improve or add sidewalk to the south side. So they wanted to go ahead and see if we could do a transfer of our dollars to them. And they would also put in this, continue this trail down here along the frontage of Timpanogos Hospital. Timpanogos now does own this parcel in here. They're very anxious and they're willing to go ahead and give us that right away. I guess it's going to be UDOT to continue this sidewalk down through there. Besides this piece, this trail essentially is going to be almost complete. You just have these parcels in here that have this regular sidewalk instead of the 10-foot wide trail that would lead from the canyon all the way down to Vineyard. So that's another project that's going to be working with UDOT. The other, and lastly, for a city-funded project we're looking to put in a new signalized intersection here at 4th South and 4th West. We'll do that in conjunction with this tank project. As I was speaking to earlier when I was talking to Becky, they're looking to put in a 10 million gallon tank here on this piece, and then we'll have a pump house here and a well right in here. With that, we will, since we own all of this parcel now, we will widen this a little bit to better line up this intersection with the left, the through, and the right. But part of that, we will wait until we're doing all this work here with the tank and the pump and the well. The well will need to be able to discharge when a well fires up. It usually has to run for a minute or two to kind of get all of that settled water out of there. And then once it's pumping and pumping clean, then it can go ahead, go straight into the tank or go out into the system. But while it's on there, they call it pumping to waste. We'll put that water into a storm drain system. And this intersection right now, the storm drainage is handled by sumps, and we don't want sumps next to our wells. So those sumps will be eliminated, and then a storm drain pipe will be built to convey that water away. So that's the big city-funded project that we'll have coming up as far as transportation. We also have.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
The guy who lives in the house on that property.
Which corner?
The Farley property guy.
Okay, Arlen.
Yeah. So tell me about him. Is he just staying there?
Yeah,
is there
so
an option to buy his property later on, or what?
Yeah, so we purchased 4.2 acres, and our parcel looks like it'll come around, it comes up, and then what we've done is we've left him an acre and a half, and he'll still continue to live there, reside there. He'll be able to farm this little piece here as long as he wants to. And then when he decides to sell and then relocate, the city has the first right of offer. So we've had that in writing in our agreement that when he decides to sell, that he'll approach the city, and then we'll, hopefully it's a reasonable offer, and then we can purchase that remaining acre and a half, and then we would develop that into more park space.
Okay,
You're
thank you.
putting a park on top of the tank as it is currently planned to be built.
Yeah. Right now we're looking to have that tank. It'll be in this area. It will be buried it'll be a little bit mounded on this end because this is the lowest end of that property, because this area, this very southwest corner is kind of a hole. But yes, the tank will be buried. It'll have kind of a native scape features on tops, and it'll be accessible. And then we'll have some vents and hatches up on top that we'll have secured. So yeah, that's kind of the thing right now, and we're going through that right now. Now that we've got good, clear direction from council and the citizens around there, we know what we're doing as far as landscape, aesthetics, and we're getting all that ready to go. So yeah, we should probably have someone here before too long out there removing those trees. Then shortly thereafter, I don't know, maybe a month after, it seems like the guy that can go in and do the trees probably anytime. And then I think we're about 6 to 8 weeks out on material for the fence. And then a fence will go up to differentiate our property from Arlen's property. And then I would think probably early spring, we should have some contractors online beginning to excavate the hole, and then also be doing some of the pipe work. So yeah, but that's, go ahead.
Too bad we didn't need a water tank on Farley's property on 800 North. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it'd probably be nice to have one there as well. Looking at other projects, we did start our mag tip selection. The idea phase is starting now. I did submit an idea for a project to essentially finish Lakeview Parkway, looking to build the remainder of that. UDOT right now has 2 projects they're actively pursuing: 16th North and Geneva Road, or I should say 16th North from State Street to 12th West. They are in the state environmental, they're doing a state environmental study in SES. So they are looking to, I think there's meetings next week. They have some open house, some virtual meetings. So they're starting that environmental process. Geneva Road down here on this portion from University Parkway down to about 1860 South, 18 South. They are looking to update. There is an existing EIS that is old, done back prior to 2010, I believe. And they're looking to update that. And then they will begin construction of a 5-lane facility in this area. So they'll be widening out to adding 3 more lanes and then putting in curb gutter and a trail on the east side. So they're moving through with those. So with UDOT moving forward with that, and 16th North moving along as well, both of those projects aren't necessarily funded all within the same year. It's going to take a few years to do. And that's why they'll do the environmental phase and do all these other things. But with that being said, Provo coming up from the south, Provo is planning, they have the right-of-way purchase for their 5-lane Lakeview Parkway cross section. They will be building 2 of those lanes. But I don't know when they plan on building the remainder of it, knowing that UDOT's going to build their full 5-lane facility. I had submitted to MAG initially for the full 5-lane build out, but likely what I will do is I will adjust that and have it so that we will be building, we will still want to purchase the 5-lane facility, because that way we can purchase it essentially with the thought of as a discount. You don't have to worry about inflation, but then build the 2-lane facility, and then at whatever future date we would look to build the 5-lane facility. But I'll coordinate with Jamie on that too, and make him aware. And we may just, because the dollars for this project aren't going to be available till 2025, 2026, somewhere in there. So maybe it makes sense to go after all of it and build it, because at that point, maybe the rest of it in Provo's being ready to build. So maybe it makes sense to go, and seek all that funding.
Sam,
So-
can you just take your cursor and just give a rough idea of where the Lakeview hooks up to Orem?
So what Lakeview will
Parkway.
do is Provo's going to come up. Here's their Lakeview Parkway, and they'll come up. I think they probably swing around, and then I don't know how they exactly go through this area. I'm assuming with this wetland piece, they're probably going to come up around a curve, and then it'll tie in straight here. at 2000 South. And then we would continue on straight up through, and then we would likely do the same thing, try and avoid this wetland area, and then come through and then tie into Geneva Road. Likely though, we would have it to where Geneva Road essentially was coming this way, and we would turn to make a left-hand turn to continue down to this 3-lane facility. So we would build the intersection as such so that it was pretty apparent that the main 5 lanes would continue south down Lakeview Parkway, and then we would have 3 lanes that would continue down here on this current Geneva Road corridor.
Once it gets into Geneva, where does it go? I mean, does it ultimately just follow the Geneva alignment to 16th
Yeah.
North?
You mean, so going south of where we would be here?
No, Lakeview Parkway headed north from where you're going to tie into Geneva there.
Yeah, what happens there is in Lakeview Parkway just turns into Geneva Road, and then it just continues straight north.
So it essentially terminates at the intersection with Geneva.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I think the thought is, in speaking with Provo too, I think the thought is once Lakeview Parkway is built, there would be a jurisdictional transfer, and UDOT would then have that facility. Whether or not UDOT builds out the remainder of it, I mean, that's kind of one of those things that I think that's kind of what Provo would think. I just need to engage UDOT to see what their thoughts are, to see how they would like to have that done. Because they're the ones, I mean, that's why this portion of Geneva Road had moved up so high in priority, because they're in desperate need of having some sort of a parallel facility to I-15. This portion of Geneva Road really wasn't a huge priority for Orem, other than, yeah, it would have been nice to have it built in front of the temple, but I mean, there's really no place for it to go to have that 5-lane facility. But UDOT is very anxious to, try and continue to the south, a parallel facility to I-15. And it makes sense. I mean, if we get this all built in eventually, I mean, it's all going to feed straight down to the airport. It'll all come down through to here. And then you have this airport, all that new terminal work that's happening here. So it makes sense. I mean, I would think in 6 to 5 years, this whole area is going to change. I mean, likely Provo is going to have, because right now, the reason why this isn't all looking like this is because they don't have sewer capacity. It's all master planned by Ivory Homes, essentially to have either single family homes, or it's going to be single family homes on really small lots, or it's going to be this higher density, but it's going to be it's not going to be a low density area. It's going to be a medium density build out, but they're waiting until they have sewer capacity. So once Provo has their trunk line in and their lift station, and the capacity then at their treatment plant, this area is going to change significantly. So once that all happens, it's going to go up really, really fast, I think. So,
Sam, when are they going to put the bridge in from Warham to Saratoga?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've been talking with MAG quite a lot about that, and UDOT.
So I was being facetious, but you're talking like there's actually been conversation.
Yeah, they have. So when UDOT and Provo were looking to do this 820 North and part of their EIS, they had too many unknowns, and they had too many things out there that it was holding up them proceeding down, finishing their environmental study, deciding where the alignment would be, and then being able to move forward with the design. Some of those environmental conditions were they needed to figure out what was going on here at Pleasant Grove, off of Pleasant Grove Boulevard, between North County Boulevard and Pleasant Grove, this whole area. There was a study going on there. They had a North Shore corridor study, which essentially was going on at the same time. And then MAG had their regional transportation plan that said, hey, there's supposed to be a crossing across this lake. Where is that going to be? Because we need to know where that crossing is going to be, where it's intended to land, so we can better define what's going to go on with this environmental. I mean, you're going through this environmental, we're anticipating all this growth. Where are you and anticipating connections, because that kind of has an impact on what we're doing now.
Right.
So they're moving forward with doing some sort of improvements here. I'm not too aware of what's going on with this, just because it doesn't have as big an impact to Orem. The North County, the North Shore study essentially is what it did is, instead of putting in another corridor in here or another lake crossing, what it said is, hey, Pioneer Crossing needs to be a freeway. It needs to go to a 6-lane facility, likely grade separated, and do some other things similar to what they're doing at Bangerter. I mean, I don't know if you guys have driven this, but it's
horrible.
crazy.
It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, so, but with all that being said, yes, there was discussions of we need to have a lake crossing.
Yeah.
Initially, it was supposed to be, I'm not sure where exactly it was going to land here in Saratoga, but it was initially planned to tie in here to 8th North, tie into Vineyard Connector. It would make sense. It would tie into this interchange. That way it can go up to the canyon. You can go south, because this Orem Provo area is a huge trip generator. It's a huge destination for a lot of this traffic coming from North County. Vineyard changed their master plan. It changed what they wanted to do, so they don't want this to land here anymore. They have a whole new downtown plan that doesn't include this overpass, so it was up in the air. And so they have said, hey, just temporarily, right now we're just going to draw a line, and it's going to tie in, and we're going to aim it right into here. We're just going to have it so it kind of aims here at 2000 South, 2000 North, Provo, Orem. Just come straight across, and that's where it's going to go. We're not too happy about that, mainly because, I mean, it made more sense in our mind from a planning perspective for it to tie in here. You got this
Right.
8th North is a big, large corridor, 6 lanes. Like I said, you can feed up to the canyon, you can go north into here, you can come right south, but I mean, it's already a big corridor. This isn't a big corridor at 2000. This area of Orem and Provo is very anti any sort of interchange, hence the reason why this is down here at 820. So for this to come into here, it's not really what we want, but they're just putting that on paper. It's kind of a placeholder. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, that from a design perspective, engineering perspective, I mean, it made more sense to go here too, because this is one of the small portions along this whole lake where there's not a lot of wetlands. It's just essentially you go lake, you have a little piece of shore, and then you have upland. So it would have made putting in that infrastructure a lot easier. You wouldn't have all the environmental impacts. You wouldn't have all the mitigation. I mean, all those things add up to dollars. So
Doesn't Vineyard understand, as being a new town, they don't have voting rights like the rest of us?
well, you know, it was kind of maybe said in certain ways in our meeting, but it kind of fell on deaf ears. But yeah, it's kind of like, really, we go through all this planning and you guys just decide to pull the plug? I mean, and I get it. I mean, we have State Street, and I mean, it's a huge, I mean, it's a road, but it just as well be a big, tall moat or something. Because I mean, when you have a large corridor like that in the middle of your community, it kind of does create a little bit of a barrier.
Yeah.
So I totally get it, but anyway.
So how come they can do that?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And I don't know if it's just their political power. I mean, because they went through and changed their planning. I mean, in all reality, if cities were to go through and, you know, I mean, if you go down, so if you're going down a path of, hey, this is what we want to have, say we want to have transit, or we want to promote, if we wanted to say, you know, gosh, it'd be great if we had a light rail station for UVU, okay, and we wanted to have it right here. Well, if UVU then decides to, you know what, you know, the city's looking towards it, we're looking to put this in, or even that ped bridge, if we wanted to have that, UDOT's looking to spend money. Okay, it looks like it's going to make sense, but if everyone changes their master plan, if UVU decided to move all of their campus to Vineyard and then sell this off to a developer or anything like that, if anyone decides to change their master plan and move and relocate, I mean, it really doesn't make a lot of sense then for others. I mean, in this case, you know, you're looking at a city allowing them to connect to a road and put in their infrastructure. And that's kind of maybe the card they had, Lene, is that, you know, right now there isn't any state property. You don't have a state route there. You're not necessarily going to go to it and add it and widen it. You're going to actually have to, you know, condemn the city or these private property owners. The city's not going to support it. So I guess that's probably what they did, is they said, you know what, you guys don't have any property here. You haven't really finished this Vineyard Connector Road. It's just kind of sitting here, and we're going to change, and we're going to put our downtown here, and it doesn't make sense. And you know what, that lake crossing, even though, gosh, you think it might be great, but it's really not going to do anything for us, because cars are going to be traveling 50 miles an hour, and they're not going to touch down and slow down till Geneva Road. Well, heck, then maybe we don't need it. I disagree, because I think you could have all sorts of development up in there where that steel factory was, and Geneva Steel was, and you could all of a sudden have a huge employment center there and make it a destination. But they have plans for other things. So
The 710 freeway in California was supposed to go up through Pasadena, and it's been a dead end stump for about 45, 50 years now, where the little towns there are just not willing to allow progress. So
yeah,
Marlon, you'll be interested to know, my family lived there back then, and we sold our house to California. We had to move back to Utah because they bought our house for that freeway and never put the freeway in.
wow. Yeah. It's a small world. We lived down there for a while. Anyway. Well, okay, Sam, thanks for the project update. So there anything else that we need to talk about on those?
no, the only other thing I have left is just the transportation master plan update.
Right.
And what we're doing is they do have a storyboard that they've started. They're going through the process. What happened was, as they were preparing this and we were going down the path, and I'm flipping here between two maps, but this was our 2015 map, kind of outlined where we had collectors in different lanes and things like that. Well, it also had data in there, travel data, right? Well, they proceeded to give us an updated map. And as you can see here, if you were to look at this section of 16th North, now these are recent counts, and that's why we had to go out and have them done, because what they do is if there's roads that are on the regional transportation plan, the RTP, and those are roads that are identified as being deficient and need to be widened, then the state gets involved and they try and put up counters, and they look at these corridors to see how they're going to flow into their corridors. Well, they had put out some counters and done some work, and one of those corridors happens to be 16th North down 8th East, clear down to University Parkway. Well, when we got to the maps, I'm looking, you know, because I wanted to compare. I was looking at our old map from 2015 to the new one, and we had 15,000 in 2015 on 16th North through here, through this corridor. And when they gave us the new map, it was down around 8,000. I'm like, whoa, that's a big difference in data. What's going on? Because that goes from maybe making this project a phase one project in our RTP now to maybe a phase 3, or it has pretty big implications to our master plan. So we pumped the brakes there, and then we had them go and collect data in certain areas. And that's really the only thing that I can report now on our transportation master plan, is they went out and got brand new data counts for areas. They didn't include the rest of 16th North. They do have the rest of it west of state, because the state is doing their environmental, so they needed to have updated counts. But I wanted to have accurate data, because all that data goes into the master plan, and then from the master plan, you develop projects, and from projects you develop fees. So I wanted to make sure the data was correct. So now we finally got some data, And now they're working to there's other data along 16th North, some host counters, some cameras, things like that that we're verifying. So right now we're getting all the data correct. They have about 80% of the update kind of put together, all the fluff and filler, if you will. But now we're just wanting to make sure the data is correct so that we can tie that to projects and then projects to fees. So that's
So
kind of where
remind
we're
me,
at.
did you say the dates that old data versus the new data, the high counts versus the low?
Yeah, so those old counts were done back in 2015. And I don't know if it exposed a flaw, being that the state and how data's, because that was part of the whole thing, is I had to be re-educated on, okay, what's going on here, guys? Why are these numbers so big? And now when I go to these, they're smaller. Well, it's because they really only had maybe data counted here and maybe here, and then they use their math and the stats and their models to grow it and project it. And that's how they kind of extrapolate it. They necessarily didn't have a tube counter there, or they didn't have the radar there. So that's why I said, well, there's a big difference between 15,000 and 9,500. Now, understanding that Canyon Park is not full, it's about half occupied. So maybe that accounts for it. I don't know, but I just wanted to have current data, and let's explain the data in the master plan, because of certain things that are happening here, a lot of people are looking at our transportation master plan, which is great. I'm glad folks are, because for the longest time, I thought we spent the money, we put this document out on the web, and the only people that accessed it on a regular basis were me when I was talking to developers. But I'm glad that because of things that are happening, people are a lot more involved, which I think is great. But because of that, I wanted to make sure that the data was correct. So they went out and they counted all these areas. So that's where we're at with our master plan, is taking all this data, putting it in there, and coming up with our master plan.
So that's my question, I guess. When did they count these lower numbers?
These
high
ones were just counted like, oh gosh, a month ago, I think.
Okay, so maybe that's it, because Canyon Park isn't back up again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of, is that.
What are the numbers down by UVU and between Warham Boulevard and State Street that you've got there? How do they compare to the 2015 numbers?
Okay, so those ones.
Well, can I say one more thing? So I gotta say,
Sure.
so my husband works for Adobe. So the tech companies are still not back yet from COVID.
They're still at home. They're not going back to offices yet.
He's still working from home, or they're giving him the option. So, and that's a lot of tech up there on that Canyon
Right.
Park. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, you got Warham Boulevard. Let's see the one there. You had. See, so this is.
4th North,
So we got 4th North and 4th South.
right, 10,000.
So we just didn't have any in there, 4th North and 4th South. So I mean, it's interesting to see if you look at this map, where you have what has reduced and then what has grown. You know what I mean? It's kind of interesting, and that's the one thing that they have found out, even talking to UDOT, is that in some of our areas now this might be up in this area on 16th North, that might be directly related to Canyon Park, because these numbers are AADT. This is the annual average daily. And what they found is, even though the peaks are different because maybe they are working at home and things like that, but there's still people getting out and traveling. And I think that's what they're probably makes sense here, I guess, when I think about it. If the tech park is still half occupied, and that would be, even if these numbers were computer generated, even if they were at 12,000, there's still a pretty significant reduction. But now that things are different, COVID maybe is now, we're kind of past it. I don't know, maybe I'm just assuming.
Well, if you look at 4th South there on the map you're showing, well, there it's 10,000. Go back to the other map.
Yeah.
And it's 7,800 and 5,300 on either side.
Yeah.
So that 10,000 looks like an increase.
Yep.
To what may have been on either end of that previously.
Yeah, and this is 3,000. and that's by the mall, and we're at 8,700.
Yeah, and yeah, that feels right. There's a lot of cars on that little section.
This one looks about right. You got 15 to 10, and this
Mhm.
one showed 13.
Right.
That seems right. You go 4 south, this one looks a little where they had it 53 and 78, and really we're at 10. That doesn't look right. That makes you think that on either side of here, it's actually probably more. This guy, you're looking at 59 to 96. We are at 11. So yeah, but obviously too, 2015 till now, you can also look at, this one, this 4 south, yeah, that makes sense because that's a direct feeder into Vineyard.
Yeah.
And this place has grown. I mean, it's doubled. I can't remember what it's done, but I mean, it's the amount of population growth between 2015 and now is huge.
Right.
So anyways, that's where we're at with the master plan.
I'm gonna say just back to the Canyon Park thing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just saying, of course, this is anecdotal, like, right, my experience, but so my husband works for Adobe. Adobe is based in the Bay Area. They have a completely different view of COVID and returning to work than we do. So there aren't that many people out at Lehigh. Well, a lot of the people, my husband included, are just saying, I like working from home. I'm going to keep working as long as they'll let me. The word is they're going to start forcing people to go back because they don't want them working from home. They're finding productivity has dropped and things like that. So I wonder if the tech park, if any of those are same companies connected with Bay Area policies, and
Sure.
maybe that's a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
We're still working from home.
yeah, I mean, to your point too. I mean, that's probably why. I don't know if you guys are BYU fans, but I would imagine that's why you go to a football game, you don't wear a mask. But if you go to a basketball game, you have to wear a mask, and that's because most of those schools, I mean, it's the West Coast Conference. They're mostly in California, and I imagine that's probably part of their rules. So yeah, I would think, even though we're a little bit different here, yeah, there is still some other global, or at least within the nation, there's impacts of what's going on. So
Okay.
but yeah, that's
And
all I have, unless you guys have any
Okay.
other questions.
sounds like we can move on the agenda. The last item on our agenda is to approve the 22 meeting calendar, which sticks with the first Tuesday of the month. It was attached to the email Cheryl sent out. Are there any comments about that? Concerns? Doesn't sound like it. I will move that we approve it. A second. Is there any second? Okay, there we go. Lene seconded. So we'll take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. And it looks like it's unanimous based on what I could see. So was there anybody opposed to it? I'll ask that, and that will confirm unanimity or not. Nobody seems opposed, so we will call it unanimous. Last item, I guess, before we adjourn tonight, Lene, congratulations. At least from what I've seen, it looks like you'll be on the city council. So just to good luck
Thank you.
with that.
Thanks so much. I'll probably be replaced on here, so we'll get it to someone else. Huh?
Well, it's one of those, be careful what you ask for. I'm sure that Jeff can tell you the city council sometimes has its ups and downs. So with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. It sounds like Lene did that. A second. I'll second it, and a vote. Any opposed to adjourning? I worded it backwards, Carl.
Yeah, you did.
You didn't want opposed to
I
adjourn.
didn't want to oppose.
Right. I assume that was, I should clarify. Doesn't sound like we have any opposition to adjournment, so we will adjourn at this point. Thank you for your time, and we will see you in a month on December, whatever that is.
Hey, thanks, Sam and Cheryl.
Yep, you're
Okay,
welcome.
thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks, Marlon. Great job.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Marlon.
We'll see you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.